Hello everyone and welcome to today's video. Today I'm doing my final prediction for the 2025 elections for the Virginia Attorney General's race. Now the Attorney General's race is a very interesting one in Virginia because based on the polling data right now, this looks like the one contest that the Republicans may actually be able to win, while the other two are looking like pretty likely Democratic wins at this current point in time. Now, I did just record the video for the lieutenant governor's race in Virginia yesterday, so after this video, make sure to go check that one out as well. Now, this race between the Republican incumbent Jason Miyares and the Democrat Jay Jones is a very special election in a very special case. In 2021, Jason Miyares, a part of that Republican trifecta of Glenn Youngkin, Winsome Sears, and Jason Miyares, were able to defeat all three Democrats. In this one, Miyares defeated Democratic incumbent Attorney General Mark Herring in a very close race, getting 50.4% of the vote to Mark Herring's 49.6%. Now, obviously, that was in 2021, a very strong election night for the Republicans. Going into 2025, the expectation's been for a while now the Democrats are going to have a very strong night, and the Republicans will be more likely to lose in all of the Virginia races, governor, lieutenant governor, and attorney general. And for a while, it looked like that was absolutely what was happening. And then if you've been following this race very closely, you would know right around about a month or so ago, the big scandal breaks involving Jay Jones, where what happens is some text came out or some comments he made about one of the top Republicans in the state of Virginia. I'm not going to go into too much detail in this video, but it was very bad and certainly hurt Jay Jones in his campaign and really hurt his position to win this race. So just to give you an idea, this is what the race was looking like, where Jay Jones was leading either at 50% or in the high 40% or so, while Miyares, who was the incumbent, was getting around high 30%, low 40%, pretty much on par with what we saw both Winsome Sears and John Reed doing in their respective Virginia races as well. And then the Jay Jones text scandals leak, and then this race is completely flipped. The last poll from Christopher Newport University showed Jones leading 49-43 with 8% undecided. Now we can see a lot more red in this race. So this race has certainly flipped. Now Christopher Newport University, that same poll that showed Jay Jones leading by 6 points, now shows Jason Miyares leading by 1, 46-45, though this race is very interesting, and I'll go on for a few reasons why here. For one, the polling averages show Jason Miyares leading over Jay Jones by a lean Republican margin, lean Republican being in between a 1 and 5 point victory. Now, the most recent polling average from Decision Desk HQ has Miyares at 47.3, Jay Jones 4.3 or 43.2, with still 8% of voters either saying other or undecided at this current point in time. Now, across the average of averages, Jason Miyares is 46.8, Jay Jones is 43.6 with still 8.8% saying they are other or undecided. This race is very, very fascinating because as obviously the scandal really hurt Jay Jones. Jay Jones was getting around 48, 49, 50% of the vote or so in these polls. And now Jay Jones is getting around 43, 44, 42%, depending on the poll that you're looking at. Now, what's also interesting though, is yes, Jason Miyares' support has certainly gone up a lot since these scandals broke. The Trafalgar poll, he was getting 45%. Christopher Newport University was getting 43%. Washington Post and the Schar School, he was getting 45%. Now look at the numbers Miyares is getting. 48% in the Republican SoCal Strategies poll. 46% from Roanoke College. A2 Insights, 49%. Christopher Newport, 46%. Suffolk University, 46%. The Republican Qantas Insights poll, 49%. When I've been talking about this race in the last few weeks or so and doing videos on this race, I've noticed that clearly the trend and the shift in this race is that Jason Miyares is leading and has a pretty strong position to win this race. But when you actually break it down by the numbers, this isn't really an insurmountable lead that even with the terrible scandals that have hurt Jay Jones, that doesn't mean Jay Jones still actually can't win this race. And when it comes down to is simple math here. For one thing, there's only two candidates in this race. It's Jay Jones and Jason Miyares. So one of these candidates, unless the write-in number ends up breaking like 5 or 6% or something, and that is possible, that could happen in a race like this one, but it's more likely than not going to be close to a mathematical number of being like 51-49, 52-48, maybe a percent or two decide to abstain because of Jay Jones and they don't want to vote for him maybe, but there's still a lot of undecided vote left out there with now only a few days remaining in this race. And that's what's ultimately going to decide this election. Now, from a pure mathematical standpoint, there's a lot of similarities between this race and the 2021 governor's race in New Jersey. Now, what do I mean by this is in those polls, Phil Murphy had 50.5%, Jack Chiarelli had 42.7%, but there were still about 7% of responders that were undecided. And ultimately, in that election environment, Jack Chiarelli did way better than polling expected. It was a very strong night for the Republicans, both in New Jersey and Virginia. Jack Chiarelli won most of those undecided voters in those polling averages. So what does that mean for 2025? Well, one thing, with the roughly 8.8% still saying they are other or undecided, that's roughly 9% of voters that have either not made up their mind on this race or have made up their mind and have changed their mind, now they're not so sure, or the third option, which is they have made up their mind and they're just not saying to pollsters who they are supporting. And that's the main question here. Because Jason Miyares, the highest polling average he has in Decision Desk HQ is 47.3%. We can actually look this out on the map here, what this looks like. Since Jason Miyares and the scandals with Jay Jones broke, Jay Jones was peaking right around 50.2% back in July, but was really peaked around 49.2% throughout most of July and August. Now, since the scandals broke, Jones went from 48.6% down to 43.2%, whereas Jason Miyares, as that was happening, has gone up to about 47.3%. Now, there is still a lot of undecided voters left in this ground, and this chart here, the confidence interval chart, shows a lot of this. Miyares certainly has a lot of ground here where he's leading by about 4 points, but there's a lot of possibility in this race that there could potentially be a Democratic upset in this race, and a large part being is Miyares is still only getting 47.3% of the vote. Now, you may be thinking, okay, well, what am I saying? Because Miyares is clearly leading in this race. He's a 4-point favorite, 47.3 to 43.2. But you have to take into account this race that the Democrats are more likely than not going to win the governor's race and lieutenant governor's race by a pretty healthy margin of at least 8 or 9% when everything is said and done. So for this race, how does that get affected? Well, if there are voters who have been really paying attention to these races and they know what's going on with Jay Jones and Jason Miyares, and they have a strong opinion about Jay Jones, they're obviously not going to vote for him. But what about the voters who maybe don't pay attention too much and are called straight ticket voters, those who just show up and vote for the party of their choice? They vote down ballot, all Democrat, down ballot, all Republican. Is there enough of those voters in this race to potentially save Jay Jones from a blowout loss against Jason Miyares? That's where the polling data only showing Jason Miyares at 47.3%, I think should be a little bit concerning for the Republicans, because I do think Miyares is narrowly favored to win this race. But with him at 47.3, Jay Jones at 43.2, seeing as it's a two-person race, there's still enough undecided vote left out there where I wouldn't be 100% confident in Jason Miyares, the Republican, winning this race. Now, the only poll that I think really goes into this too much is A2 Insights, which shows roughly 3% of voters still undecided, but Miyares is getting 49%, Jay Jones 48%, and 3% undecided. And I really don't think when everything is said and done, we're seeing a governor's race that's going to be a likely Democratic win. We're seeing a lieutenant governor's race that's going to be a likely Democratic win. Even with these scandals here, I don't think we're going to see Jason Miyares defeat Jay Jones by like 4, 5, 6% on election night. Now, obviously, I could be totally wrong, but given that the other two races are going to be such big wins for the Democrats, I think at very least we're going to see a very tight competitive race here. One that the Democrat Jay Jones certainly could come back and win, given how much undecided vote is left out there. Because not only is Jason Miyares going to have to get like 49, 50% of the vote or so to win against Jay Jones, he's going to have to outperform his other two Republicans in Winsome Sears and John Reed, probably by around 5 points or so to actually win, which on an election environment, which should be very good for the Democrats, it's going to be a very tough task for him to do. Now, given the scandal in the race surrounding Jay Jones, it's certainly possible for Jay Jones, and in most polling estimates and prediction sites, Jason Miyares is nearly favored to do that over Jay Jones. But man, there's a unshakable feeling in this race that the polling data with how many undecided voters there are left in this one, that maybe Jason Miyares and maybe the shock of the night narrowly falls to Jay Jones. For now, I'm not going with that. I do think Miyares is narrowly favored to win, given the scandal and the gravity of this race, but that unshakable feeling is not going away, and this is certainly going to be a race I'm watching very closely on election night in just a few days, because those undecided voters, what do they do for Miyares versus Jones, is going to make things very, very interesting, and again, what should be a pretty strong Democratic electorate. Now, just to give you an idea here, because I've been talking about the votes coming in for Virginia and what it could look like, the map I've been using the most is the 2020 presidential map of Trump versus Biden. Joe Biden won here by about 54.1%. Donald Trump got 44% or so. It's about a 10-point Democratic win. Now in 2024, it was smaller than this, 51.8% for Kamala Harris, and Donald Trump got 46.1%. And you saw Virginia Beach going blue by about 2.5%. You saw Chesapeake going 4 points for Kamala Harris, and you saw Loudoun County being 16.2%. Prince William about 18, and Fairfax 34.7. Now we can actually look here in 2021 where Glenn Youngkin won, and you'll see these counties being red. Chesapeake was about a 6-point win for Youngkin over McAuliffe. Virginia Beach was about an 8-point win, and you can look at these counties as well. Loudoun was 11 points for the Democrat, Prince William 15, and Fairfax about 30. So I'm looking at these places, and I'm comparing it to also the Attorney General's race in 2021 as well, where Miyares won Chesapeake by under 5. He won Virginia Beach by around that same 8-point margin or so. And the DC suburbs, 13 points in Loudoun. You saw about 18 or so, or I'm sorry, 16 points or so in Prince William, and then about 31 in Fairfax. What are these counties doing? These are the key areas I'm watching, because there are obviously a lot of counties in Virginia, a lot of safe Republican counties like Washington County or Smith County, then a lot of safe Democratic counties as well, like Richmond City and Greater Henrico County is going to be a very strong Democratic win. And then you also see some more competitive areas as well, like Surrey County was very close, Sussex County very close, but they're a little bit smaller in population. Whereas you look at the big vote centers, you're looking at the DC suburbs, you're looking at Alexandria and its greater surrounding counties, and Fairfax, Prince William, and Loudoun, because there's such a large population of people living in just 3 counties, all really tightly packed together. And then you're also looking down at Virginia Beach, and you're looking at Chesapeake. These are 2 areas that are a mix of both city and suburban, but also have a lot of people living in these 2 counties as well. Now, these are very important areas because on election night, we know for sure these 3 counties in Prince William, Loudoun, and Fairfax, or Loudoun, Prince William, Fairfax, they're going to be voting Democrat. They're going to be voting for Jay Jones. But the question is, how will they be voting for Jay Jones, both in comparison to the 2021 map, but also in comparison to the governor and lieutenant governor's elections? That could be a very big indicator at how things are going in this race. But also, it should be worth noting, Chesapeake and Virginia Beach are going to be very important areas to watch for as well. Both of these counties I expect to be Democratic wins in the governor and lieutenant governor's race. But if Jason Miyares is leading or winning these 2 counties on election night, that could be a sign that he is in business and may potentially have a chance at winning this race. But ultimately, Miyares can still win Chesapeake and Virginia Beach, but lose this race if the DC suburb numbers go up a lot for Jay Jones in this one. So I'm watching those 3 counties very importantly. But if you're seeing these 2 counties of Chesapeake and Virginia Beach going blue, the chances of Miyares winning are not going to be very good. But if they're going red, then you have to look at the DC suburbs and say, okay, well, what are they doing by percentage compared to the rest of Virginia from the past few elections and the current governor and lieutenant governor's elections as well? Because that could be a very telltale sign at how this race is going. So with everything I've said in this video, how do I currently have this race going? I personally disagree with the polls on this one where they say Jason Miyares is leading by about 4 points. I think it's more like Miyares is currently leading by about 1 point, and I think a lot of those undecided voters that are saying they're uncommitted right now don't want to say to a pollster they are supporting Jay Jones, but when everything is said and done, I think a lot of them will support Jay Jones, and this will make this a very close race, potentially the closest race of the 2025 elections. I think it becomes a very close race to the finish line where Jason Miyares wins by a tilt Republican margin, which is under 1% of the vote, like he won back in 2021 by under 1 point. I think we're going to see Miyares win again by under 1 point, and this is going to be like 50.5 to 49.5 type of very close. I think Jay Jones gets a lot of those undecided voters that he lost but due to the Democratic performance on the governor and lieutenant governor level, I think it makes it closer. But ultimately, I think Jason Miyares pulled off a narrow victory due to the fact that the scandal really hurt Jay Jones, and I certainly think that was a real impact on him. But I think Miyares wins by just enough to keep this race in Republican hands. But I'm interested to hear what you think. Leave your thoughts in the comment section down below. Who do you think is going to win between Jason Miyares and Jay Jones? Leave it all down there. I always read every comment, so definitely leave your thoughts down there. Thank you so much for watching. Please remember to stay tuned as I have the other races I've not yet covered for New York City and Virginia and New Jersey for their upcoming predictions in the final few days that you're not going to want to miss out on. Thank you so much for watching. Hope to see you in a future video.